lands of all Indigenous peoples. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Abraham?
Excused.
Ms. Baumann?
Here.
Ms. Dwerkadal?
Here.
Dr. Cooper-Stoll?
Here.
Dr. Garcia?
Here.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Ms. Leahy?
Excused.
Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Mr. Spivey? Mr. Spivey?
Absent. Quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of May 16th, 2022 is called to order, and we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Moved by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Dr. Cooper-Stoll. Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board. With that motion in second, we will approve the agenda as submitted unless there's a motion to amend. Is there a motion to amend? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried, and we'll move on to the Global Education Achievement Certificate, and I believe Ms. McGowan, is she here? Good evening.
I'm Rhonda McGowan, Spanish teacher and global coordinator at Logan High School. I am here to congratulate and introduce two global scholars from Logan High. The Global Scholar Program is a DPI-sanctioned program that began in our district in 2015, giving students a jump start in a future global career. Students work for 4 years, choosing to study courses with a global focus and 4 years of the same world language and/or an additional language, plus reading 4 additional books, participating in global activities, and a 20-hour service project. These are motivated students with a passion to do more. These opportunities exist for our students because we have a variety of global classes and world languages that we offer. Congratulations to Leah Mattingly, who is a Spanish immersion student that worked as an advocate for our students with the Lingua Meeting program, where native speakers meet with our students. Congratulations to Leah for all her dedication and hard work. Unfortunately, she is ill this evening, so she's not here. The second student receiving the Global Competency Certificate is Peng Khan, who is a student studying Chinese and also Spanish. Is that all right if I let Peng come up and describe her project? Mm-hmm. Okay, Peng.
So for my project, I did two. My first one that I did was based on Ukraine. I made pins to sell online and at school to help donate to Save the Children and the ICRC, which is the Red Cross International. Then for my second project, I also did the Luoyang art. For that one, I just drawed an art piece and gave it to Miss Tolstad and Rosemary. For the first one, back to the Ukraine one, that took me at least 10 to 15 hours to do because it's a long process that I had to do. I did research behind some things, such as the sunflowers, the meaning of it, and also the eggs. The thing that I made the most was the Piansky eggs, which is also part of their culture. That's basically what I did.
Congratulations, here's your certificate of global competence, becoming a Wisconsin Global Scholar. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Next, we will move on to the Wisconsin Seal of Biliteracy, and I believe Ms. Beyer is here.
So good evening, I'm Ms. Spire. I'm a Spanish teacher at Logan High School and also one of the SEAL of Biliteracy coordinators for our district. And I'm here with Miley Lohr, who is our coordinator at Central High School and an EL teacher there as well. First, the SEAL of Biliteracy is a program where we've had now this is our second year of graduates. And it's a program where students have to demonstrate very high level of language learning. They have to take an APPLE exam or another state-approved exam where they are at an intermediate, high, or advanced low level, which is an equivalent to a college degree. So really they have to dedicate a lot of time and energy to perfecting their language abilities. They also have sociocultural components that they have to reflect on and participate in and do a final project that highlights an area of their language growth or culture that they learned during the process. And so we also have Leah Mattingly, who's unable to be here today, earning this award. Leah worked extremely hard through the immersion program and classes at Logan High School and even took classes this year at UWL and Viterbo and earned a certificate in Spanish interpreting. So she was the only English speaker in a whole class of native speakers. So that's quite an accomplishment for her. Super proud of her for being able to do that. The other student that we have here today from Logan has also worked very hard through the Spanish immersion program, and she reflected on that with her final project, so I'm hoping that she'll talk a little bit about that in her language growth, and that's Tatiana Roberts. So come on up here, please, Tatiana.
Hello, I'm Tatiana Roberts. So I went through the Spanish immersion program at Northwoods. And so that means I started that in second grade, carried through that all those years, went to the middle school. All of my middle school teachers are here, which is really exciting. And then I went through the high school program, through the specialized classes that they made for us. And then I also took a UWL class this year because we ran out of curriculum at the high school. And I did all the other stuff, but I'd like to focus on my project that I did, which is based on bilingual education, specifically kind of on a global scale and comparing to what we have here. This kind of whole thing started because I learned about the changes that were being made at Northwoods, and I was very upset because I love that program, and it was so beneficial for me. I mean, I have a passion for learning languages because of that. I started taking German, also from Murphy. I just have a lot of fun with it, and it's something that is like a connection that I can really make, and I'm going to carry that with me for the rest of my life. So I looked into that, and my teachers were like, hey, so maybe you should do some research, and I did some research, and I was like, okay, so maybe this isn't so bad. And then I did more research, going into interviews with some of my former teachers, with some of the people over at Northwoods, and basically, I want to put it out there that as a student, I don't have all of the information out there available for me about what's going on with budgeting and administration and all of that, but I also know that we had a really great infrastructure for a program that worked because I went through it and it was phenomenal. And watching it crumble as I am just making my way through it is a really heartbreaking thing to see, and the educators that worked so hard to complete it, and for the teachers that are still there watching it, like their work also fall apart, it's just been really hard for me. And I want to put it out there that there are students that care about it, and I'm sure there are educators that care about it. And this research project was incredibly valuable for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miley Lohr. I'm the current EL teacher at Central. I am transitioning into world language next year. I'm doing the Hmong language program. We do have some students at Central too who also earned the SEAL Biliteracy, and I will call them to the stage or the podium. First, we have Isabella Britton, Ivana Yasser Feltz, Dima Dmitry Kutyanov, Alexia Mao, Gao Xing, and I am not sure if Toby is here or not, but Toby Vang. So the students will each talk a little bit about their projects that they worked on and a little bit about, their experience.
Hi, I'm Isabella Britton. I got the Seal of Biliteracy in Spanish because I also went through the Spanish immersion program in elementary school, And then I completed all the Spanish at Central and then also took a course at UWL. And I also learn Norwegian pretty frequently. I went to an immersion summer camp, and I try my best to keep it up, and I just love learning languages. So I did my project on translanguaging, which is kind of how a person who speaks more than one language uses language to interact with the world around them and in their everyday life. And I explored the scientific parts of that, and then how using it in the classroom, because I got to see it firsthand, really benefits students, and how teachers can implement translanguaging in their classroom even if they don't speak the language. So it was really cool to see the scientific parts behind it, and then how it can be implemented everywhere even if the language isn't super popular. So yeah, I guess I just use it in my everyday life, going through from Spanish, Norwegian, English to any other language I decide to take on. So yeah, it's been a fun experience.
Hello, my name is Yasser Feltz, and I did the Seal of Biliteracy program with Ukrainian. I focused my project on the effects of knowing multiple languages on academics and what language bilingual people think in, and how the advantages of that are really important. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexia Mao, and I did my Seal Biliteracy project on how the Hmong story is told through, and it's usually told through story cloths or folklore, or usually if you have an older, I guess, a grandmother or a parent who went through their experiences in Laos, you can also learn it from there. And I guess through my project, I've learned a lot about my history, talking to my grandmother, and it's been a pleasure.
Hello, my name is Dmitry, and I was born in Ukraine. I moved to the United States in 2018, and I did my Seal of Biliteracy project in Ukrainian language. And my project was about the Ukrainian language and the Ukrainian culture, and how Ukrainian traditions impact the development of Ukrainian language. And yeah.
Hello, my name is Gao Xing. I am originally born from La Crosse, Wisconsin, but I am Hmong American. So for the project that I did was on tonal language. First of all, I did my Seal Biliteracy on Hmong, but going on to my project, I had some introductions about language, how language can identify somebody, and then I did some examples of how languages have tones, such as Chinese and Hmong, and how we use our tones to kind of change the words and the meanings. And then I did have some similarities and differences between the languages as well. But yeah, I'll just keep it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public speakers. It is the policy of the board to provide at its public meetings an opportunity for individuals to address the board. Comments about individual staff or personnel will not be allowed. Open meeting law prohibits the board from engaging in discussion or responding to matters not included on the agenda. All speakers are reminded that this same policy limits your time to speak to 5 minutes. This limit will be strictly enforced. If I could ask the superintendent to keep track of the time and to notify the speaker when time is running out.
I will do so.
Thank you. You are also asked to give your name and the school district where you reside at the beginning of your time for the public record. So our first speaker tonight is Adam Manka.
Yes, I'm Adam Anka from La Crosse Central, and unfortunately I'm here with the plans to remove another SRO in the next coming weeks. Teachers were exhausted this year, and we're not exactly helping them much the removal of SROs. When we enter into our next school year, we can look at this year and see clear examples of situations they've faced. As fights increased and vandalism increased, I talked to the Crosse PD, and out of the fact that 18 school threats of shootings or bombings came from the past decade, 10 of them came from this year alone. We are lucky that none of these threats became true for La Crosse Central, but unfortunately some of them were elsewhere. In Aurora, Colorado, 4 teenagers attempted to drive by. It is noteworthy to report that the incident that the school resource officer was the first to arrive on scene, applying tourniquets and emergency medical care that resulted in no deaths. Thank God this wouldn't have happened to us, or else we could have faced the grief of a fallen student who could have been saved of similar actions. This year, we also exhausted ourselves in fights. Teacher had to break up more fights more frequently this year. As I pointed out the last time, there was an incident in which an SRO had to help a girl who was beaten to the ground while other classmates formed a circle around the students. No students helped these classmates. This left the worry and the burden to the overwhelmed teachers. So how can we better ourselves in being preventative? But what happens when we can't? What happens when we have to react to these situations? I'd like to give credit to Lit for speaking in April, although they unfortunately missed our point. These students argued that SRO should be gone completely, calling for restorative justice and counselors instead. Well, believe it or not, they already have restorative justice in the forms of already what's implemented in the police force. Police do not want to arrest everyone, despite what Lit claimed. Police don't arrest you if you have a speeding ticket, and they especially won't arrest you in schools. I'd like to share the statistics from the Crosse Police Department. There are usually about 800 reported incidents a year in which SROs have recorded in schools. But although LCPD does not record arrest, upon a simple question, our SRO at Central used their handcuffs only once in their entire career, and that was when 2 students were endangering each other. This statistic should not come as a surprise. Police use what is called minimum force necessary. In order to de-escalate a situation, they'll first attempt to separate the 2 offenders and question them. They'll use only what force is required, and if this has to involve violent forces or as a reaction to them, from fights, pulling up a gun, or running away. And for their second points, counselors are already stressing their duties, as I have spoken to one of them about this issue. These people do their best to provide mental support to students, but they're not trained in breaking up fights and fear for their safety too. This guidance counselor loves to help students, but the roles of an SRO they can't keep up with. And relying on them hurts them just as much as us, as they attested to. During this meeting, Lit also attacked SROs in the school-to-prison pipeline, which unfairly calls that SROs are the biggest reasons why someone can be stuck in the criminal justice system. But again, and one of these speakers even admitted this flatly, SROs can't suspend anyone as they don't have the authority to. This organization exaggerated their claims of race as a relationship between cops, but they don't give themselves a chance to meet them, and instead point to SROs with preconceptions. This student can even speak to an SRO without looking at their taser, which has never been documented to be used on any students. It is this ungrateful nature that unfortunately got us in this issue. These people decide to call us misinformation, as if we'd purposely mislead the public. But then they say we shouldn't be considered proper voices because we are white men. I shouldn't have to say this because it is dearly obvious. We, nor the SROs, do not care about your race, and safety is a universal need regardless of said race. When we come to schools and send our children to schools, we wish for the best and most safe spots to advance through our education. As family relies on schools, it is a huge responsibility of the schools to make sure they provide connections with the world in a secure environment we would trust and long for. Bring back the SROs for our teachers, students, children, families, etc. I personally plead you for my little sister in Hinchin that had one of these threats this year, for the teachers that come home wishing not to see another fight, for the parents who have relied on us for their children's education, the nation so in need of safety. We don't think the school is taking the right step, and as we begin another year, let us be confident in our safety. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the supporters of the SROs, from the 300 signatures of the petition to the letter of support from the staff behind me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For a presentation, we understand if you want to take off, you may have other obligations this evening as well. So we understand if folks need to leave who've already spoken or received certificates.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Masonmuth.
Masonmuth is not with us today, unfortunately.
Okay. Our next speaker is Caden Young.
Hello. Caden Young, and I am a student of Central High School. As you already know, since early January, after the threat that happened on the 3rd of January at Central High, we have gained over 300 plus signatures in support of keeping the SRO program, and the board also got a letter of support through the staff. The SROs are not there to necessarily be police, but they are there to be mentors or someone to go to when there is a problem. And it's not his or her job to punish the student for bad behavior, but to help the student through the time they are going through or the things that they did. I know many students of Central High School trust our SRO. Many students of different backgrounds are comfortable talking to the SRO, even if it's something they did wrong. We have come here today to ask the school board on behalf of the students of the La Crosse School District to reinstate the SRO program. Last week, our SRO had an assembly for the students and gave a lesson on how to appropriately speak with law enforcement. This training helped the students see past the perception that law enforcement were only a person with a badge. This assembly had students volunteering to help with demonstrations as our SRO simulated a pulled over car being reviewed by a state officer. He routinely joked with students and made a great learning environment to show the humane aspect of an officer's job. This humane aspect was one of the first builders of this movement to keep the SROs. This school year, the team got closer with our SRO and we got to know him personally. We started this year needing to see more of humanity after the horrific isolation that 2020 caused, and we are grateful for being able to look at our heroes proudly. Now, Lit called for the end of SROs entirely, and sadly called them agents of harm to our community. This organization is anti-police from its beginning. On their website, they call for the end of police nationally, going as far as to abolish all prisons by 2035. Of course, their words matter, but they're wrong. Security is one of the top needs of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the mission of the SROs and police in general is to keep us secure in the nation. Would we be safer without any officers in the city? Could anyone tell me why we would be? If anyone wants to see what our officers do on a daily basis, Code Blue Cam on YouTube provides great examples of what we don't see. These people are trained for all sorts of scenarios we usually don't even know about. Not every interaction with a police officer is positive, and it's well established, but what happens when we need to respond to negative and endangering events, while we can be proactive with our approaches, when something slips by, we have to do something about it. On January 3rd, it was our SRO that led the initial reaction to our evacuation. Could anyone else take such a measure? Are we safer without them? I want to be safe in school as anyone else does, and I'd argue that SROs are one of the biggest reasons why we're safer. We're not the only ones that want them back. Our petition showed a wide support for SROs, and our teachers were one of the biggest inspirations for starting this movement. Thank you for letting me speak today, and stop removing our SROs and bringing them back.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Michael Deo.
Greetings and salutations. I too am here to speak about the SROs, and my name is Michael Deo, and I go to Central High School. I'm in my school's special education program, and so today I'm here to speak in favor of our school SROs and the safety and stability they bring to our school district. Recently at school, there has been many issues that have brought to light many severe problems at our school, such as bullying and violence issues, in which the administration has been too overworked to help out. And I don't think I'm alone. Just last week, I was told by a friend of how they were shoved into a wall and assaulted by another student. In fact, I have asked several parents in the community on whether they feel their child is able to safely learn at school, and many of them have told me that their child is experiencing severe bullying or even physical violence. I even know someone who pulled their child out of school because of how bad the bullying has been getting. Whilst I want to make it clear I fully support restorative justice, I still think that our SROs can be useful in managing discipline in order to prevent issues from getting out of hand, allowing the administration to primarily focus on student mental health and further action to ensure restorative justice can be fairly effective. I've stated twice now about our diverse support group regarding the SRO petition, including many groups of wonderful people, including the LGBT community members of our school and special ed students such as myself. There have been claims that we do not represent the minority, despite the fact that many of those against us are also white. I believe our SROs want to help, which is proven by their willingness to work one-on-one with the student population and consider all sides of the story. I myself was assaulted on school grounds by another student whilst defending a friend from abuse and was immediately reassured by our school officer who came to help work out the situation. The administration failed to follow up on the groundwork he laid, and no more follow-up action was provided, nor was restorative justice given. Thus, I believe it is the lack of care in our school to blame for the school-to-prison pipeline. Our SROs, on the other hand, have provided for all of our students, regardless of their needs and identities. A fellow supporter of the petition and member of the LGBTQ community, Masonmuth, stated that he supports the petition because the SROs have helped out with numerous things when the administrators could not. And he says that he witnessed firsthand when people I knew were fighting each other. The officer here at Central stepped in. This isn't the only instance of this, though. Fights across Central and many other schools are a growing issue, and the SROs are keeping it from expanding beyond the administration's control. With that, I state again that we need restorative justice or better mental health care in our schools, but it won't change the fact that there will still be a need for discipline and security for our school. Without it, someone dangerous could just essentially walk right in. What would the SROs be able to do about this, you ask? Well, actually, they can do a lot of things. They have professional equipment and access to quick contact with other authorities and people who can stop these kinds of things. One great example is the bomb-sniffing dogs employed during this year's bomb threats, which were only discovered because of our officers stepping in, even if it may have been directed at a different Central high school in another state. It makes no difference about where it was directed because it still occurred at another location. And it was very ignorant for everyone to still think that it, was safe for that place. And the scariest thing is that it could have been us. I might add that our officers do not go around handcuffing people left and right, but merely are around to prevent situations from escalating. I've never seen a situation thus far in which an officer treated a student badly or physically abused them in any way, nor have I myself ever been uncomfortable with what an officer has said or asked of me. We will not stop advocating for what we believe in. We are the students, we are the teachers, we are the parents, and we are Central High School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jack Murphy.
Hello, my name is Jack Murphy and I'm a junior at Central High School. You last heard from us on April 4th. Since then, we had a school board election. Congratulations to everyone in that election. And you heard from a fellow student and teacher along with the lit to their side to SROs. A few weeks ago, I participated in a lacrosse police ERT training and truly saw what an SRO would do in an all too familiar situation. They were the first to arrive on scene, helping students immediately evacuate from the building and provided communication to dispatch and other officers, giving up-to-date information on situations unfolding. Though all the officers would have been heroes in that situation, SROs were critical. The fact that we had to go through that training in the first place is truly sad. The fact that security concerns are that great in schools that we need to have kids, teachers, and officers go through the training. But even though we have to go through that training, we continue to want to cut down security measures in our schools. We keep talking about restorative justice, and I, along with the rest of our students, believe that this is a good thing. But we need to keep security in our schools. I think we all agree that kids should be talked through a situation instead of being punished right away. But we need SROs there to talk with those kids, especially because of how stressed out students, teachers, and counselors already are. One student of Lit had mentioned the timeline of once a student becomes a criminal. A student becomes a criminal once a crime is committed. All the acts that she mentioned are crimes under the criminal code in Wisconsin. She also mentioned that arrests can be tough on students and their mental health and can also lead to prison time or hefty fines, but this is of course what happens when you commit a crime. Another student mentioned that he's afraid of a taser in possession of a cop. Would you rather have a taser in possession in possession of someone who is trained to use it, or a bomb or a gun in possession of a student who's not legally supposed to have it and is limited to no training? This student talked about Caden's experience that prompted an evacuation with the bomb threat, but this student is a part of Logan High School and knows nothing about how stressful that situation truly was. He also mentioned that we don't represent a minority, yet he knows nothing about our personal lives. Teachers have enough to worry about in the classroom as it is, whether that be discipline, grading assignments, or coming up with lesson plans. I have relatives who are teachers, and I see how hard they work in and out of the classroom to make sure that they have the best tools for student success. I like to think to myself that this is every teacher's goal. This is very hard to accomplish, however, when they have to worry about their own safety in the classrooms. Teachers want to keep SROs. You even heard from a teacher on their side to SROs. Part of the reason that we have teacher shortages is because they fear for their own safety in the classroom, with the fact that this district isn't paying teachers enough or doing enough for teacher appreciation. Recent numbers from Wisconsin's largest police union said that 63% of people support having SROs. 62% of whites agreed that SROs will cut down on school shootings and other violent crimes, while 55% of people of color said the same, along with only 29% of people saying that ordinary students will be criminalized for their behavior. Officer Gilliam is one of the most honest and truly patient people I've ever met. When he gives a command to do something, he asks politely and even gives a handshake or a fist bump once you agree. He is someone that I see some of the more troubled students hanging around with and having casual conversations. Officer Nedland is one of the funniest and most pleasant people to be around. She always has a joke for every situation and truly loves working with kids. I will never forget, it was my first day of Explorers and most everyone was meeting her for the first time. She saw one of her students that she's in school with and gave her a big hug. Officer Perkapile is also one of the truly most patient people ever. When he needs to jump into action, he's always looking to be patient and really talk with students. The fact that he's trying to make connections with other students in the hall shows that he's really trying to get to know the people that he's around every day. Officer Weaver has also been one of the critical components to early childhood and high school development. He heads the La Crosse Police Explorers and teaches both Dare and Great in schools. These programs teach children early on the dangers of drugs, alcohol, and peer pressure. He's also been extremely patient with anyone, especially when I send him 4,000 emails about doing ride-alongs. My point is, these people love working with students and are truly the people that you want in the schools. They're there for protection, but also as friends. I would like to thank all of them for the crazy school year that has been 2021-2022. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Diane Saylor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Diane Saylor, and I taught French in the La Crosse School District for 35 years in 4 different schools, 31 of them at Central. I'm also the chairperson of the La Crosse Épinal Sister City Exchange Committee, of which I was one of the founding members back in 1986. I have difficulty finding the right words to adequately express my shock and disbelief when I heard that the La Crosse School District has made the short-sighted and anti-global workforce decision to drop the French program from the academic opportunities offered to students. The reasons given were declining enrollment, as is being experienced by the district, and budget issues. There was no consideration given to those students who have started French in middle or high school, and they will be required to start over in another language. And the pandemic and virtual learning certainly have not helped matters. As part of the district curriculum for a very long time, La Crosse's French program has had a stellar reputation statewide. We former French teachers and our students can certainly attest to the fact that knowing French has been an asset and even a crucial factor in the lives or careers of many of our students, and we could give you many examples. Learning French has other benefits beyond language and career prep. Do you know that French is an official language of countless international organizations? Just last year, I established a French scholarship at Central High School. How do you award a student for the study of French if there is no program? A few questions for the board and the administration. How much value do you think knowing another language has in today's world? How many of you speak another language? To be considered fluent or competent in another language, a minimum of 6 years is necessary. Americans have the unenviable reputation of not speaking other languages or seeing the necessity of doing so. I was in Morocco 2 months ago, where virtually everybody speaks French, and they were surprised that an American actually spoke it. Linguistic, cross-cultural, and global competencies are more important than ever in today's world. Can other languages besides French accomplish some of these same goals? Of course. But sometimes French is the requisite language for a student to achieve his or her goals. I'm assuming you all read the excellent letters from a variety of UWL stakeholders and the Wisconsin Association of the Wisconsin chapter of the American Association of Teachers of French, which explains the importance of French in today's world and provide many reasons for retaining French in the school district. If you did not receive a copy, I will be happy to give you one. Are you aware that since 1986, La Crosse has had a sister city in France, the city of Épinal, which is the home of Train Company's European division? Since then, students from Central and Logan have participated in student exchanges with Épinal. What message are you sending to the city of La Crosse and the city of Épinal by eliminating the French program? And the fact that Onalaska, Aquinas, and Holman support this experience, while the city with whom La Crosse is linked does not? La Crosse used to embrace the middle school philosophy of exploratory courses to give students a taste of French, German, and Spanish before making their choice of which language to study in middle and high school. Then, French was cut at Lincoln, and German was cut at both Longfellow and Logan Middle in the guise of making scheduling easier. Therefore, Central and Logan had only one feeder school for their programs, which of course affected the enrollment. Can you really expect enrollment to remain the same? Where is the equal support for all languages? And why was this decision made so late in the school year? No other language teacher that I know of in the district has had to endure the teaching conditions that the French educators have in recent years. If the pandemic taught us anything, it is that distance learning is far from ideal. So why would you create an atmosphere where the majority of the high school class French courses were taught via distance learning? As a former teacher, I know the importance of being in person to develop personal relationships with students.
30 seconds remaining.
Are you aware of students who have dropped French because it was taught via distance learning? Would you combine two different math classes or history classes? Have you done your due diligence to find reasons for the decline? Actually, the district, I believe, has fostered the conditions for the French program to fail, making it easier to eliminate it. We hope you will hear us and other reliable experts and reinstate the French program. And
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
There are other options.
Our next speaker is Ken Nash. Is Ken Nash here?
Yes, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay.
Too much applause for Madam Saylor, I think.
Absolutely.
My name is Kenneth Nash. I live in the school district near Southern Bluffs, and thank you, Mr. President and members of the school board, for giving me time to speak to you, also in support of continuing the French language program. In fact, the teaching of French is not just for students to learn the language. Just as important is the understanding of the culture, how French people think, how they live, what they like to do, how they behave. What marvels of cooking and buildings and paintings are there to be enjoyed from the French culture? I personally grew to love French Impressionism because of a French teacher. We, with our Anglo-Saxon laws and behaviors, we behave and make decisions in different ways to people of other nations. I believe it is important to teach this and to know this as we live in a global community with global trade and business. For our students to grow up with a world view will enhance the future of our country. La Crosse School District French teachers know how to teach this. I'm privileged to have current and retired French teachers as my friends. My 3 children all graduated from La Crosse Central High School and all benefited from taking French classes. I myself have lived in France during my work for the International Division of Train Company, a career which involved interacting with colleagues in Épinal, France, and many other countries. My wife and I still enjoy relationships with friends over there. So what are the impacts of losing the ability to teach French in the La Crosse School District? Épinal, France enjoys the longest relationship as sister city with La Crosse, as Madame Saylor was just telling us. the longest relationship of all of our sister cities. We have multiple types of cultural exchanges, and most importantly are the exchanges of students between La Crosse and Épinal. These have been hugely beneficial to fostering understanding and friendship. Without French language lessons available to students, these exchanges will end. A very sad state of affairs indeed, and I would say really shameful. The bedrock and foundation of our relationship with our Épinal friends will be badly shaken. The French hold their language in the same esteem as we do with our flag. How can that be taken away? It's an affront to our friends. Finally, I will appeal to history. Why is France important to the USA? Why should teaching French and our relationship with France be preeminent of all of our other sister cities? I encourage you to look back at the Revolutionary War. Without assistance from France, history would have turned out quite differently. Between 1776 and 1782, the French provided supplies, arms, ammunitions, uniforms. Does this sound familiar? Troops, naval support to the beleaguered Continental Army. The French Navy transported reinforcements and fought off a British fleet and protected Washington's forces in Virginia. Now is not the time to turn our back on our allies. I understand there are budget constraints. I understand enrollment numbers may be down. But just like the stock market right now, now is not the time to sell out. In a down cycle, now is the time to invest, to make the French language curriculum attractive to students. Be imaginative, support your teachers. In the words of a famous movie, if you build it, they will come. And I may have a minute left to tell you a story. My late wife, Janice Nash, was a teacher in La Crosse of French. Her last employer was the Masonmuth School District. They had a French language teacher retiring, but they needed to get their students through the last year. They contacted Janice and asked if she was interested to teach French for 1 year to close out the program via distance learning, which, as Madame Saylor said, is very difficult. Janice did this with enthusiasm. She also did this with full support of the principal and the school board of Masonmuth. She visited the students. She taught them how to cook in French. She took them over to France to visit the French and enjoy the culture. After 1 year, that program was exciting. More students signed up. And after 3 years, there were nearly 100 students in 4 schools in that distance learning program. That is an example of how excitement plus support from the school board and a principal can generate increased enrollment in the French language. So, thank you. I thank you for your time and hope for reconsideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Diane Dreski.
Hi there, my name is Diane Dreski, and I live just down the street from Central High School in the La Crosse School District. I was born and raised in La Crosse. I went to Harry Spence, I went to Longfellow, and I went to Central. I was horrible at math and science. I wasn't athletically inclined, and I was terrible at music. So by the time I got to middle school, I hated it. I didn't want to show up. I had no reason for being there. I had nothing to connect to. And then we were told that in 7th grade we were going to have the opportunity to explore 4 languages, and then in 8th grade we had to pick the one that we were going to take. And I thought, great, more things that I can fail that I hate. And then I ended up loving it. I fell into it, and I picked French, and I took French from 8th grade through 12th grade, and it just opened up the world in a way that I never thought it could be possible. The most difficult and wonderful classes I ever took were the ones that Madame Saylor taught, because she elevated us, she lifted us up, and she pushed us forward. She expected excellence, and she gave us excellence. She taught us that French wasn't just conjugation and verbs and words. It was art and history, and it was culture, and it reached into everything in math. I mean, look at our geography. You have La Crosse, you have La Crosse and Eau Claire, Prairie du Chien. You have everything, and people just don't think of how important that is. And during one of the classes, I remember one time she said, one of you is going to take this and use this in your life. And I just looked at one of my friends. I'm like, yeah, right. We were like rolling our eyes because we knew everything because we were, I don't know, seniors. And so after I graduated from high school, I went into the Navy, and I ended up being a cryptologic technician interpretive, and my language was French. When I was 19 years old, I lived over in Europe, and I had a top secret security clearance, and I was typing what I was hearing, and I wrote reports that I sent directly to the Office of the Director of National Security. I am still known as one of the best French linguists in the Navy. That's a win, but it's not just my win, it's the win of everybody who helped me get where I needed to be. It's the win of La Crosse. I feel like I represented us. And I showed up well ahead of the game because of the background that I had here, and that's important, but people just don't think of that. When I left the Navy, I went into the business world, and I've been an administrative assistant for 28 years. And I've had the opportunity to travel to a lot of places, several times to Europe, where I've often been the only one who speaks anything other than English. I'm the one who tells people how much their taxi costs or what it says on the menu. I sat at a table and I interpreted between my boss and our counterpart in Europe, French to English to French. I typed up all of our contracts. I contributed to commerce, but that contribution was not just my contribution, it was a contribution brought on by the support that I had here. When I just recently returned to La Crosse from living in Colorado for 20 years, and I'm so glad to be back. But while I was there, I sat at the front desk of a recreation center that catered to a large immigrant community. One day, one of our little 3-year-old preschoolers was having a rough day, so he had to come sit by Miss Diane. I sat him on my lap, and I pulled up some videos. Et puis nous allons parler français ensemble. J'ai dit, est-ce que tu aimes cette chanson? Qu'est-ce que fait ici? Qu'est-ce que font ici? And the reason I did that is because he was from French-speaking Africa. This was a 3-year-old who was in crisis because his world was too big, and I was able to make things familiar. And I reached across the culture, but that wasn't just my reaching, that was the people of the Crosse reaching out and doing that. That was very important. I served my country, I served commerce, and I served my community because of what I learned here. I also ran into that friend that I looked at class after we graduated, and she's like, so what have you been up to? And I was like, well, I was a French linguist in the Navy. And she looked at me, and she didn't even have to say anybody's name. She said, she was right. So please reconsider before you do this. It's more important than you think. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jessica Leone.
Good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for the time to speak with you today. I'm here as a parent in the La Crosse School District, and I see a middle school in crisis. My children are attending Logan Middle School. April 29th, I got a call that no parent ever wants to get. My son was in an ambulance and on his way to the hospital because of bullying. He was physically attacked by another student. He had loose teeth. He had blood everywhere. His neck was in a brace. He only recently got out of that neck brace. I have yet to hear anything from the school regarding any restorative justice, any investigation into what happened. And this problem has been ongoing. This wasn't an out-of-the-blue bullying attack. It's been going on for years. And my requests, my statements, my complaints have fallen on deaf or overwhelmed ears. Our schools need to do better. When we send our kids to school, we expect them to be safe and free to be educated and free to experience the extra activities such as language, such as sports, such as music, without harassment from other students. We need to do better as a community to teach these children who are going to be our future citizens, our future school board members, our future leaders, how to find peace. Peace amongst themselves and peace in their community. I hope none of you ever get a call like that. Pardon me. Something has to be done. Our teachers need more resources. We need more behavioral health specialists, not less. I received in the mail this survey asking me, as a city taxpayer, to approve a referendum for nearly $200 million to build 3 new buildings. I have a hard time saying that I approve of that, given that the buildings are just buildings. It's the students and the staff, the teachers and the people in that community that make up the community and the education. Those are far more critical than a physical location. I want to see more money going to supporting an anti-bullying campaign, and not just stickers or t-shirts or occasional speakers. I want to see real on-the-ground work being done in these schools. I want to see the restorative justice happening. All of my children have dealt with bullying. One of my autistic children had to be pulled out of Logan Middle because he was in such crisis there because of the physical bullying. The last day I took him home, his cheek was split open from somebody punching him in the face because they didn't like how he looked at him. This is not acceptable in my home. I'm sure it's not acceptable in the La Crosse community. We need to do better. I'm challenging you here tonight. We don't need more SRO officers. There was SRO officers there when these events occurred. We need people to help with the emotional, the behavioral, the social aspects of what is going on, creating this violence in our schools. Yes, the fighting is getting worse. Yes, the threats are getting worse. Our students are in crisis. I challenge you tonight to do something about it. Really do something to support our students. I want to thank you for the time to speak with you tonight, and I hope you will take my words to heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Christy Moulton.
Thank you. My name is Christy Moulton, and I am the teacher librarian at Logan High School. This is my 11th year with the district, and I am so proud to be a part of the Logan High staff, as well as the team of librarians that work in each of our buildings. I love working with the families and students of the Northside community. In July of 2011, I was offered my very first library position at Logan Middle School, actually by Dr. Harsey. I vividly remember the nervous and excited feelings that came in through the following days and weeks as I researched the district and I talked to my husband, Mark, who's also a teacher, about the opportunities ahead and the feeling that working for La Crosse would be a great fit for me. When I first met with Human Resources to learn about my salary and my benefits, my jaw quite literally dropped. I had no idea that the La Crosse School District had a reputation for generous salaries. And when I brought this offer home to Mark and shared it with him, we were both so impressed and excited that the district was willing to invest in its teachers through their paychecks and great benefits. We sat down and we actually had to put our benefits packages side by side because how amazingly fortunate were we that they were both that good. Ultimately, we did select the benefits from La Crosse. Overwhelmingly, I felt supported, I felt rewarded, and I felt recognized for my work as I got started, and it was one less thing for us to worry about. That's a great, great feeling when you are still in your formative years as an educator. Over the last 11 years, we've shifted back to my husband's insurance, which has thankfully remained consistent. We are very lucky to have that option. I don't talk much about salary at home, so recently in a conversation with colleagues and friends where Mark was there, Mark looked at me in shock when we started talking about not getting steps as a part of our salary on a regular basis. While I've moved across lanes through my own time, my own ambition, and my own expense, I've been granted steps in recognition of experience and time dedicated to the district just 3 times in 11 years. You will never hear me say that teachers don't make enough. The idea of enough is always out of reach in education. For everything, there's never enough, right? Enough time, enough support, enough money, enough supplies, enough resources. But what I will say is that teachers must be compensated appropriately in regards to the world that we're living in if we want creative, caring, intelligent, and compassionate people to be educators in our community in a way that shows the district values them enough to want them to stay, in a way that would excite people to work here again. I want other educators to feel that same excitement I did when I got that phone call from Dr. Harsey, when I got my first job here in La Crosse. Proud, supported, valued. Money isn't everything, but an inflationary wage cut is a terrible way to show that you value us for our work with the students and families of La Crosse. So, how can you show that this board values our teachers? That you want to attract and retain exceptional educators in our schools? Please do not accept anything that would result in an inflationary wage cut for staff. Demonstrate your thoughts and feelings on our value by standing by us and asking for a fair wage increase. Not for our experience, not for our education, but solely for keeping up with the expenses of the world that we all live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jesse Martinez.
Hello and good evening, members of the board. My name is Jesse Martinez. I am currently a resident of the School District of Onalaska. However, tonight I address you as a dedicated employee of the School District of La Crosse. For the past 7 years, as a 7th grade teacher at Logan Middle School, I poured my heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears quite literally into everything that I do for this district and the work that we do for our students day in and day out. Much of the time, I put the needs of my students, the needs of my colleagues, and the needs of this school district ahead of the needs of my own family. For the first few years that I was in this school district, I was thrilled to not only receive the full CPIU increase each year, but move across the salary schedule as I earned my master's degree and be moved down 2 steps in 4 years. I spent a lot of time at conferences around the state bragging about how amazing it was to be an employee of the School District of La Crosse. Unfortunately, the last 3 years in this district have yielded very different circumstances. In the midst of a global pandemic where we adapted, changed, and did educational gymnastics to meet the needs of every single student that we served, we were frozen and given a 0% salary increase. The following year, we were given the CPIU increase of 1.2%, give or take. This year, arguably the most trying year of my entire career, I stand here exhausted, overwhelmed, but filled with love for my students. We're being offered a 2% salary increase when the CPIU is set at 4.7%. The same colleagues that I used to brag to about the compensation and working conditions in the School District of La Crosse are now bragging to me about the compensation and working conditions in their district, about how they got the CPIU this year, and even more. Those same colleagues who used to envy me for my job and my working conditions and my compensation are now the object of my envy. I have worked harder, learned more, and grown exponentially in the past 7 years as an educator in this district, and so have every single one of my colleagues who sit behind me tonight. We deserve to be compensated at the very least for the rate of inflation in this country, instead of taking inflationary wage cuts year after year. We can't continue to balance the budget of this district on the backs of our educators. If we want to attract and retain the best and brightest educators in this school district, we must do what other districts around the state have done and continue to do. Pay your educators what they deserve. I urge you to do right by the educators in this district and ensure that the offer that is approved by this board is no less than the 4.7% CPIU. Show us that you truly appreciate us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Colburn.
I have no chance to read that from back there. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Kevin Colburn, and I've been a social studies teacher and coach at Central High School for the last 26 years. I've always been extremely proud of my school and extremely proud of my district. I've been proud of our commitment to educating all children, been proud of our commitment to equity, and been proud of their support for teachers. I've never been more proud of my colleagues than the last 2 years. A little over 2 years ago, the world fell apart, and society looked to schools and teachers to put it back together. I saw my school scramble to feed students, to provide the technology to allow our kids to continue to learn. I saw my colleagues go out of their way to help students in any way they could. As the year came to a close, teachers in the La Crosse School District made a heroic effort to care for their students in ways no one could have seen coming. When the time came at the end of the year for the school district to look at salaries, they offered a 0% raise, no steps, a complete freeze. We moved on to the next year. We hoped the school year would be more normal for our children. As the summer wore on, we found that hope slipping away. Again, my pride in my colleagues was overwhelming. Teachers that were not comfortable with technology undertook crash courses in it. We learned how to use Zoom and Canvas to provide education to students we often couldn't even see. We worked with students who were working 40 to 50 hours a week to help support their families as their parents lost their jobs. Those who were being asked to concentrate on school while caring for younger siblings. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my 30 years of education. Teachers answered the bell and took care of their kids again. As the year continued, we saw the mental toll the pandemic weighed on us all. We saw our students struggle and strove to help them through it. We had students who lost family to COVID, and teachers became their counselors as well as their teachers. At the same time, teachers had to work through their own mental health difficulties. As we were working with the trauma our students were facing, we also had to work through our own trauma, and for many of us, the trauma our families were facing. Personally, I saw my daughters struggle with the isolation, with losing the opportunity to participate in the activities they loved. Through all of this, teachers persevered and gave every student the very best that we could. When we found out we were going to be returning to face-to-face, we were excited. But we were also asked to do even more. We were asked to learn how to teach half a class at home and half a class in front of us. We were asked to risk our lives as we left home and returned to rooms with multiple people, many of us for the first time in almost a year. Again, teachers answered the bell. Schools began to receive millions of dollars in government funds. Many school districts gave bonuses to their teachers in recognition of their sacrifices. Other districts paid to cover students' employees' internet bills, as many of us had to upgrade in order to effectively teach from home. Our district chose to do none of these, instead giving us only a 1% raise and no step movement. As we approached this school year, I was excited to return to a more normal school year. However, this was not to be the case. The trauma and loss students had faced over the last 2 years affected their ability to be in school. Students, despite the best efforts of schools, showed significant skills deficits. Again, teachers persevered. We, often in the face of unimaginable disrespect, fought to get kids acclimated back to school. My colleagues spent hours of their own time working with students who had fallen behind. This school year has been by far the hardest school year of my career, and I think most teachers would echo that. Teachers have been asked to help kids who have experienced unimaginable tragedy and disruption to their lives, and teachers have given all they have in order to do that. The exhaustion, compassion fatigue, and sadness that I have experienced this year is like nothing I've ever imagined. As the year has come to a close, finances became tighter and tighter. Inflation, unseen since the 1970s, pinched teachers who had already been pinched through insurance losses, ever-declining school funding, and a lack of raises throughout the years. School districts around the state, including local ones like Home and Onalaska, recognized this and gave teachers the best they could under the law. simply a raise to match inflation as well as their well-earned steps. Our district, however, chose another path. Offering teachers who've been asked to do so much, less than half of the inflationary rate, is insulting. It does not show the district values its teachers. This makes me worry about our future as a great district. I would ask the board to honor the heroic work done by my colleagues the past 2 years. I would ask the board to honor the professionalism of our staff. I would ask the board to not ask teachers to take an effective pay cut after all their work.
30 seconds remaining.
Teachers are routinely asked to solve the problems of society. We're asked to create a place where all students can feel safe and valued. I would simply ask the board to do the same for teachers and give teachers a raise that will simply allow them to keep pace with inflation. My colleagues are worth it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Callista Richardson.
Good evening. My name is Callista Richardson. I was hired here in the district as a math teacher, but I'm currently serving as a student behavioral academic success coach at Logan High School. I'm also a resident of La Crosse and proud to send all 3 of my boys to the very schools I attended as a youngster here in the district: Emerson Elementary, Lincoln Middle School, and Logan High School. Both of my parents, Bill and Sarah Coleman, retired from this very district with over 50 years of dedicated service. And although I've only been a district employee for 2 years, I feel as if I've been raised, mentored, and supported by this district for much of my life. I'm a veteran. I have a bachelor's degree in math education and a master's degree in education. I'm currently working on my 2nd master's degree in educational administration. I've been teaching for almost 15 years, coaching volleyball, basketball, softball, and even diving. I have conducted countless professional developments on marginalization, microaggressions, and metacognition. So why? Why, with all this education, life experience, and teacher proficiency, do I feel so intimidated to be standing here? Why do I fear for my character, asking the very district that educated and launched me to pay me what I at least deserve? What we all deserve. Because take my experience and add 20, 30 years onto it and add about 300 plus more professional degrees, and you may hit a fraction of what the teaching experience that is in this room this evening. The running joke is that teachers aren't in it for the money. We don't show up for the fame. We do it because we love it. But I'm so tired of the jokes. As a wife, parent, and professional educator, I'm feeling the pressures to keep up. Not with the Joneses or the Jonases, but with my life. I don't live extravagantly. I don't take expensive vacations with my family. We only have 1 car payment, and we're fortunate enough to be able to eke out a mortgage every month and the taxes at the end of the year living in the La Crosse district. Many individuals behind me have friends and family who are in other industries and other districts, and they're telling them, come on over. Put yourself and your family first. Get paid what you're worth. But many of us don't think about our worth. That's not how we're built. We don't want a job where you show up in support of a corporation or a product. We show up because we have students in crisis. We show up because we have students who are passionate and need us to mentor them. We show up because students need to eat and use Wi-Fi. We show up because we have players who need to actualize their potential. We show up because we want to give students opportunities that we didn't have. We show up because students need hugs and to feel love from a trusted adult. We show up because lately we have colleagues who we know wouldn't get through a day without a smile or affirmation from us. We show up because we believe what we do is worth something more than money can buy. So again, why? It feels icky to be talking about money. It feels greedy and slimy to be asking for no less than a 4% inflationary wage adjustment. Just an adjustment. The amount of conversations I've been having lately with colleagues about how difficult the profession has been is overwhelming, and pay has now become the focus of those conversations. We used to talk about how nice it would be to get paid competitively, or what new college debt we were about to take on so we could earn more credits to move along the pay scale. But now many of us, thank you. But now many of us, and some of the best of us, need to live full lives. We need to put ourselves and our families first. So please support that 4%. Don't make us choose between trying to live and having a life for the sake of a job that we all show up for and we all love. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Josh Hine.
Good evening, everyone. To the Board of Education before me, and the educators and families and neighbors and friends behind me, and to the community members watching from home. My name is Joshua Hine. I live on the north side of La Crosse, just 2 blocks from Logan High School. My students are my neighbors, and I feel really lucky to say that. I'm the physical education teacher at Northwoods International Baccalaureate School. My wife, Stephanie, is also a teacher in La Crosse at Longfellow Middle School. Between the two of us, we serve around 330 students every day, working diligently to make meaningful, authentic connections to our content and striving to build honest relationships with the individual human beings that step foot into our classrooms each day. Each and every day, regardless of how overly excited we may be to teach, separate from what is happening on our streets or in our houses of government, and regardless of how tired and overworked we feel, we come back to serve our students. In addition to teaching in our public sector, Steph and I balance a host of additional jobs, working at a local yoga studio, 2 public universities, painting houses, mowing lawns, leading professional development workshops for teachers and healthcare workers, and this eclectic list could go on. It should also be noted that both of us hold a master's degree and continue to work on postgraduate credits in all of our free time. We do all of this in an attempt to better ourselves so we can better our students and the La Crosse community at large, but we also have to attend to our needs, our ability to participate in our society. Without the work we do after our day jobs as educators, we would forfeit our access to financial stability. Now, if the work we did outside of contract hours for our students was compensated, my family would not need to balance 7 jobs. But I'm not asking for that tonight, as that we are advocating for something more immediate and palatable. I'm here tonight taking action so that the paychecks of our teachers might have some resemblance to the respect that people say they have for us, that our pay somewhat honors the level of professionalism and degree of scholarship that we carry. I would ask that teachers are paid what they're worth, but instead we are asking just for the current cost of living rise of 4.7%. In an environment where teachers and staff are leaving in alarming numbers, what is the district willing to do to demonstrate the value that we have for education? Are we going to invest in the people that show up with love and grace every day to serve all kids, all neighborhoods, all beautiful colors and shapes and sizes and expressions of the learners that step foot into our schools? Is it not a systemic issue that we are even asking for this consideration? Furthermore, are the folks in this building advocating at a state and national level for changes? Because we are. Most importantly, Stephanie and I are raising 3 beautiful young children. We have a babysitter tonight, so we could come here. This is our date, and thanks everyone for being a part of it. Each day is a new world for our kids. They witness the power and the challenges of our society, and they're trying just to make sense of it. I recently enrolled my eldest son for preschool starting this fall, and to be honest, it was a much more difficult decision than I would ever care to express, as I am an insider witnessing the struggles of an underfunded, overworked public education system that is built upon unpaid teacher overtime. I am here with the people in red behind me, doing what we can in this space tonight, asking for a fraction of what we really need, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. will move on with the agenda, and our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda? Are there any items?
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Dr. Garcia. The items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented unless there is a motion, or excuse me, unless there's, my God, words escape me. Unless there's objection. Is there objection? Hearing none, then the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved. We'll move on to the board consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Baumann. The items on the board consent agenda are approved as presented unless there's objection. Is there objection? Hearing none, then the board consent agenda items are approved as presented. And we will move on to our announcements, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Baumann. Okay. Thank you, and I do not have any updates as well, and so I'll turn it over to Superintendent Engel.
Just a few announcements. The first is our facility survey is out. It closes on May 23rd, and I encourage everyone who's gotten that survey to fill it out. If they want an extra code for another household member, they can call our district office, and we're happy to provide those. We provide dozens a day. So people are interested in taking the survey, which is great because we need good feedback on that. In addition, we have 3 high school graduations coming up, which is very exciting. It's the culmination of what we do here in public education. May 20th at 5 p.m., La Crosse Polytechnic graduation at the La Crosse Polytechnic School. May 27th at 5 p.m., Logan High School's graduation at the La Crosse Center. And following that, on May 27th at 8 p.m. is the Central High School graduation at the La Crosse Center. If you have an interest in attending those graduations, you get to hand out diplomas and meet the graduates. Let Laura know. Yes.
Sounds great.
Well, the high schools have asked us for coming.
Excellent. Well, we just want to make
Not
sure that we have
Polytechnic, but the
a
other two.
last
Okay.
go around. Yes, Polytechnic we need to know. You can let Laura know, and then we'll get those figured out. That is coming up very quickly. Those are all my announcements.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda planning.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 6, 2022 Board of Education agenda with any additions or
any additions or corrections. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried. It was, other than the public comment section, a very short meeting in terms of the work of the board, so I do not have anything for debriefing this evening. If any of the board members have anything they'd like to add, please go ahead. Okay, hearing no objection, then we will adjourn this meeting and move to our workshop upstairs in 209. Thank you.